The best of money matters. Right business.
Welcome to this month's The Peak special on The Right Business. I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, in today's episode, we'll be diving into the complex world of family-owned legacy businesses and the next generation of leaders reshaping them. Inheriting a family business is often seen as a privilege, but for second and third generation leaders, it comes with its own set of challenges. The weight of tradition, the pressure to innovate, and the expectations of both family and industry create a delicate balancing act. So some choose to preserve the legacy while others push for a reinvention. But how do they decide which path to take? Well, to find out more, joining us today is Zat, who is the editor-in-chief of The Peak Singapore. Zat, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Zat, you recently explored the second act of family businesses and the challenges of legacy leadership. What inspired you to dive into this topic?
So I have always been very interested in family businesses because I have always viewed them as stable pillars of the economy. And I suppose a lot of Singaporeans do too. But what's often overlooked is the deeply personal and the psychological weight that comes with inheriting one. The transition from founders to successors isn't about only operational handover, as people mostly believe. It is also, of course, about identity, it's about obligation, and there's also this tension that new generation owners have to preserve between the past and between pushing for the future. So when I spoke to the leaders like Patrick Chan of Kitchen House Group and Don Teo of Amara Holdings, I was drawn to how each of them grappled with these questions in quite distinct ways, which of course we will discuss further in this interview today.
Right. Well, there's also a common belief that only a small percentage of family businesses survive past the second or third generation. So based on your research, is this a fair assumption or are there nuances we often overlook?
So this is a statistic that was quite surprising to me as well in my research. I mean, the truth is, while statistics often paint a grim picture, as you mentioned, some studies suggest only 30% of family businesses survive into the second generation and just 13% into the third. These numbers don't really tell the full story. Survival isn't just about financial endurance, it's actually about adaptability. Businesses that fail to transition often struggle not because of external forces alone, but also due to internal friction, unresolved succession planning, or an unwillingness to evolve. But what's often overlooked, of course, is that survival can take many forms. So for some, like Patrick Chan of Kitchen House Group, it meant a diversification where he expanded Kitchen House Group beyond its original catering business to include multiple brands. Whereas for someone like Don Teo of Amara, it was about reinvention, where she transformed Amara's flagship hotel into a space that reflects both heritage and modernity. So these businesses, the businesses that thrive, are the ones whose leaders understand that legacy isn't about preservation for its own sake, but about reinterpreting it for a new era.
I see. Well, let's talk more about the article you've written as well. You've described a deep psychological weight that comes with inheriting a family business. How do second and third generation leaders typically navigate this pressure?
I think we have to really understand, right, that for these second and third generation leaders, they're not just inheriting a company, they're inheriting decades, sometimes centuries of their family sacrifices, values, and ambitions. And this can manifest as a deep sense of duty or even fear that any misstep could tarnish what came before. So some leaders, they will take a more measured approach, like Patrick Chan. He slowly decides to prove himself to the previous generation while implementing change incrementally. Others, they embrace the weight of the creative process, using it as a lens to shape the company's evolution, whether through, like with Don, whether it's through hotel refurbishments or cultural initiatives that blend the past with the present. At the end of the day, the most successful successors, I believe, don't carry the weight alone. They find ways to engage family members, employees, and external mentors to navigate the burden collectively.
I see. Well, you highlighted that younger leaders often hesitate to take over family businesses. What are the common reasons for this reluctance?
One of the biggest reasons is autonomy. So most second and third generation leaders, they want to carve their own paths before stepping into the family business. Because I suppose they worry or they fear that they will be forever defined by their surname rather than their own achievements. So for instance, like Patrick Chan, he initially pursued a career in mechanical engineering, and it was only after years in the corporate world that he decided, okay, you know what, he is going to explore the family business, approaching it first as an experiment rather than something that he has no choice but to do. Another key reason is industry fatigue. So family business, particularly in traditional sectors like F&B and hospitality, they can be incredibly demanding. And many younger successors question whether they are ready to shoulder that burden, especially when the industries themselves evolving rapidly. And then lastly, there's the challenge of convincing the older generation to relinquish control. I suppose many original founders struggle to step back, which makes it very difficult for successors to implement change. But of course, some second-gen or third-gen leaders have found a way to get around this. For instance, with Patrick Chan, rather than resisting the dynamic, he has found ways to adapt and to balance respect for tradition with his own vision for growth. And I suppose a lot of second or third generation owners tend to prefer that kind of approach.
I see. Well, some successors even feel an unspoken duty to protect the past, even when market realities demand change. So how do the most successful leaders strike a balance between, honoring tradition and making necessary shifts?
The most successful leader, from what I have gleaned from this series, right, they see tradition not as a constraint, but as a guiding principle, right? Something that informs their decision rather than dictate them. So with Patrick, who is one of the profiles that I featured, so he knew that maintaining his father's legacy brand, which is team catering, wasn't enough for the Kitchen House Group to thrive. But instead of dismantling it, he introduced new brands to appeal to different market segments. And in doing so, he proves that evolution doesn't have to come at the expense of tradition. With Don Teo, the challenge was to modernize the property, the Amara Hotel property, while staying true to their heritage. So to that end, she has engaged with the late architect Alan Cho, whose vision shaped Tanjong Pagar, and ensuring that every refurbishment aligned with Amara's long-standing identity. So by weaving the past into the future, right, rather than treating them as opposing forces, both Patrick and Don demonstrate that true legacy isn't about preservation per se, it's actually about progression.
I see. Well, earlier you've also mentioned Patrick Chan from Kitchen House Group as well as Don Teo from Amara Holdings. So let's talk about them as well. I mean, Patrick had to challenge long-held traditions to modernize his family business, while Don took a more integrated approach, blending legacy with innovation. What was it about their stories that made you want to feature them? And did you notice any common patterns in how different second-gen leaders approach change?
So what stood out about Patrick and Don's story, right, was that they are so radically different, but they have equally effective approaches to leadership. So Patrick came from an engineering background, and from my conversations with him, he had to fight for every change he made in the business. So his is a story of persistence, of earning trust, of implementing innovation gradually, and proving that modernization doesn't mean abandoning a legacy. Dawn, on the other hand, she grew up in the business. She grew up running around in the foyer of Amara Hotel. So she has seen the hotel personally through her eyes. But for her leadership style is a little bit more integrative. She finds ways to merge tradition with innovation quite seamlessly, whether it is through refurbishing Amara Singapore or launching creative culinary initiatives. Her approach demonstrates that evolution can be organic rather than adversarial. But a common thread between them is their emphasis on long-term thinking. So neither one of them are chasing short-term wins. Both are shaping businesses that will remain relevant decades from now. And for me, that is the hallmark of a successful second-gen leadership.
I see. Well, both Patrick and Don have transformed, their businesses in different ways. Patrick through expansion and diversification, Don through reinvention and design. Based on your interviews with them, do you think these differences reflect a broader shift in how family businesses are evolving today?
Okay, so this is without doubt, right? Absolutely. Because traditional family businesses often operate with a keep doing what works mindset. They are focused more on continuity over disruption. But today's successors recognize that stability isn't enough and adaptation is key. So for Patrick, his approach reflects the growing need for diversification, where businesses can no longer rely on a single revenue stream and they need to expand into new markets and product categories to stay competitive. Whereas for Dawn, her emphasis on design and experience signals a shift in consumer expectations, where people no longer just buy products or services, they in fact engage with brands that offer slightly more immersive experiences. Her reinvention of Amara Singapore speaks to this trend, proving that hospitality is not just about the rooms or the room service, rather it's about cultural storytelling. So together, their strategies illustrate how family businesses today must be both expensive and experiential to thrive.
Very interesting. Well, Zod, if leadership is about creating value here, what should today's successors focus on to keep their family business relevant for future generations based on your observations?
So I will look at three key areas. The first is sustainability, but it is not just about ESG compliance, it's about creating long-term business models that endure. The second one is digital transformation. So this one is non-negotiable because even in traditional sectors like hospitality and F&B, leveraging technology is quite crucial. And lastly is brand differentiation, because this ensures that a business remains distinctive in an increasingly competitive landscape. So Don's ability to merge heritage with modern storytelling at Amara is a masterclass in this.
I see. Well, before we let you go here, Zod, just to wrap up our interview here, what do you think, truly defines a successful second act in a family business?
I think a successful second act isn't about just maintaining the past, right? Rather, it is about reinventing it in a way that remains true to its spirit. And it's also about making sure that the business isn't just inherited, but also creatively reimagined.
I see. Well, thank you so much, Zod, for your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We've been speaking to Zod, editor-in-chief of The Peak Singapore. This has been The Peak Special on The Right Business with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.